Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George, joined once more by Phil and Dave for another Andor spoiler discussion. This time we are on episode 4 because obviously last week we were given the first 3 episodes together, and we're going to give our spoiler thoughts on this episode because it's Wednesdays. It's back. We're here at 8 p.m. There's going to be 12 episodes total in this series, and it's going to be quite a fun one. So before we get into any of that sort of stuff, how are we all doing tonight?
Yeah, very good. Nice to be back again. So yes, lovely after missing last week. So yes, looking forward to talking Andor.
Indeed, it's nice to have the band back together after a little while. So yeah, happy to be here.
Definitely. And for everybody as well joining us from home, please do comment your thoughts on Andor. As we said, this is a spoiler discussion. Anything from this episode we'll be talking about. We're going to split the episode up into the key subplots. Of course, we've got Andor's storyline. We've got the reintroduction of Mon Mothma. And the IS, I keep saying ISP. No, it's not the Imperial Senate podcast, although do subscribe to them. The ISB, of course, who are going to have a very key role in this series. So, as you said, please do comment the thoughts. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, a fan of Andor, do consider hitting that subscribe button because there's a lot more episodes of these on the way. And we'd love to get you all involved throughout doing these. So please do help us and support the channel. If you want to find out about other videos happening, other things on the channel, you're best off finding us on our social media feeds. That's Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and we have a link to Redbubble in that description below. But before we really delve into it all, Dave, because we missed you last week, and I'm glad to hear you are feeling better, which is very good. Just very quickly, your thoughts on the first 3 episodes, because you messaged me what to bring up, and I had it written down, and I forgot, which was obviously the swearing in Star Wars.
It's the usual for this channel sometimes. Between Dave and myself, we've missed a few videos going, right, these are our points. We want you to bring this up, and then usually gets forgotten. Someone go, oh, yeah, we had that. We just didn't get to it. So, yes, Dave, thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't know, the first 3 episodes, it took me a couple of watches, to be honest, to kind of get into it fully. Really enjoyed it first watch, and just as a new Star Wars thing, so that was really nice. So I had that, and then it's very much a much slow building series for this, I think, because they've got so many episodes that they've been given that really take the time with sort of building the world we're in, which is the first 2 episodes are kind of just that, giving us little brief insights, what happened to Cassian, and then we kind of got that all action 3rd episode where they were escaping from the security, whatever they are, with the little orange visors, and the guy from EastEnders in there. So yeah, it was. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's actually a really nice series. I've enjoyed today's episode to kind of add on to it. It's been a nice sort of overarching story so far. So yeah, enjoying it. It's not what I was expecting. I don't think it's a much more different series than I thought was going to be like in there and with stuff and fighting, and it's not. It's really like, we're going to take you through all these places. We've got all these characters introduced here, so sit back and enjoy the ride you're in for. But so far so good.
Excellent. And what we'll do, Phil, I'll hand over to you very quickly. Just very quick initial thoughts on episode 4 too. Also, we have Martin in the comments. Good evening, Martin. As always, lovely to see you here. But Phil, very quickly, thoughts on episode 4.
The short version of it is, as we were discussing before we came on, it's definitely part 1 of a 3. I like how this is now looking in terms of here's your 3 episodes per story arc broken down into nice little chunks. It actually makes me more confident for series 2 than I was initially thinking, because how they're going to do 4 years and 12 episodes, that's a lot to do. Now I can see how they're going about doing it. I'm all right with it. Now, this episode was good. We've now had, as Dave was saying, the world building from the first episode. And funny enough, I actually rewatched Rogue One today, kind of as a little comparison to see how it was all lining up and seeing where Cassian will eventually go to. And this episode, I felt, was actually less about Cassian, more about bringing in the ISB, bringing in Mon Mothma, bringing in now the more Imperial side of it. And I quite liked it. And it's one of those things, yes, Cassian might be the title character, but doesn't mean he is the be-all and end-all of the show. There is a lot more going on to it. And I thought this was a fantastic way to bridge from the first 3 episodes of here is now your characters to now here is where the storyline's going.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that Empire Q&A, I swear I keep bringing that up. Diego Luna said out front in the conference that, this show shouldn't be called Andor. Not that he's complaining, but he said this is a story about all the characters. It's a story of the galaxy. And that's what's kind of had me not more excited for the series, because I was excited, but the more I've heard anyone speak about this project, this series, it's actually been about the quality of the series. They're not saying watch it, it's great, explosions, etc., etc. They're saying watch this series. It's going to be eye-opening. It's espionage. It's going to be other to what we've seen in Star Wars. And following what you said, David, it's such a slow burner. And some people use the phrase slow burner as a criticism, which I've never understood, because some of the best shows of all time are often either. I mean, Breaking Bad season 1, not much happens if you really drill it down. It's one of the best shows ever made. And it only really amps up as the seasons go by, which is like so many wonderful shows. But with this, just my initial thoughts on episode 4, I think it's heading into this really mature, as you said, story about the galaxy. Obviously, we'll talk about the ISB, we'll talk about Mon Mothma, because they're I'm going to assume, be the 3 key points. I think the way this series will go, both certainly season 1, no idea about season 2. We're going to have Andor subplot, we're going to have Coruscant, and we're going to have the Imperials sort of following or trying to work them out. And I think it makes it quite exciting as an entry point. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, it really is. It's I like you say, I think the slow burn especially is really nice about it. I really like that we're getting all these major subplots, but kind of all focusing towards obviously the beginnings of the rebellion, which is really nice. The rebellion got a mention or two inside today's episode as well. So just sort of those sprinklings of, and Cassian even said, this is what you're doing, it's going to be a rebellion or this or that and that. So we're just getting this really nice sort of, all these little bits of information getting dripped into the story. And it's nice, we know where it's going, but I'm really enjoying the build that we're getting this whole era of these characters now that we had no idea of what happened. I'm really, really into that part of it. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. I do wonder if if we didn't have the animated show, if this would have been them branded as Rebels, because it feels like it's an appropriate tagline for it. But where we have that, Andor being a quite a focal character from Rogue One, you kind of have a storyline to follow. But it's less Andor, more Rebels, without it being the Rebels tag, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I see. I think the name, not because the animated show, I think the name Rebels is just a bit too childish for this series. They'd probably have gone for like a really diplomatic title, like, I don't know, like Rebellious Uprising or something like that. Like, it'd be, this guy did the Born Identity, Supremacy, and Ultimatum. Like, he's not going to take it easy for how he wants to call it. But I can certainly see along those pathways. And if we kickstarted the first major story arc of today's episodes, I guess where we want to jump in is, of course, with Andor. So we're going to follow up with him on the ship. I know it's Stellan Skarsgård. I'm learning the name Luthen. It's going to be, and this is what's kind of amazing, right? And how often have we, obviously we had Kenobi this year where we knew every single character bar like 1 or 2, which we had to learn, which we did learn very quickly. But this one's like an open text. We're like, this is a new era with the new characters. I've got to learn like everyone's name. And I'm trying to remember the last time I actually had to do that for a Star Wars project, because by all means, The Mandalorian was probably the most simple, that there wasn't as many people. It was like The Mandalorian. Eventually, Grogu, after Baby Yoda. And even that took a week. But this is going to be a really interesting one, because I can name a few names, but Luthen's going to be the first key one for me, if I'm being honest. And I'm just going to hand it over to I think this was Tony Gilroy's brother at this episode, Dan Gilroy, actually. The scene on the ship of just Cassian, trying to figure him out. So, like, do I want to help him? Does he want to help me? Do I want to try and escape? It's, again, like what we had in the warehouse. It's like a continuation of that scene, that the action got in the way. They're sort of finishing their conversation. And there's something about this where it's just 5 minutes of them just discussing, what could happen down the line. Even the threat of, I could just drop you off that planet and you could just run. But if you come with me, at least you've got a chance and you'll be on the run with me. And there's something about this that there's something special brewing. And I just think it's the first time I've been able to see, not a good Star Wars script, because that's such a pathetic thing to say, but these more mature Star Wars scripts, could we say, that we're getting, I would call it, real dialogue. Now we're having an amazing time with House of the Dragon at the moment, which is some of the best dialogue on TV following the early seasons of Game of Thrones. And we've got Martin. This is why I'm bringing this up. So far, it's like reading a book, which is a good thing. And this is kind of how I am, that I don't feel I've had Star Wars in this light before. And I know that's an easy thing to say. A lot of people are saying it, but just immediately, how do we all feel that opening scene? Because, it obviously ends with also Cassian, like, knowing, can I trust this Luthen guy? Because he just told me I'm going to go with these lot for 5 days. And there's a lot of interesting arcs brewing and setting up. I'm just curious about what you both thought of that opening set piece.
I thought, for one, Skarsgård was absolutely awesome in this episode. His acting, I've seen him in stuff before, like bits and pieces. I've seen a lot of him in Marvel and things like that, where he's in there for little bits. But I thought he was absolutely exceptional. As you kind of see, finally some like real acting from him. I've not seen some of his other movies where he probably has done a lot better. But I thought it was exceptional. I thought him and Diego Luna had a really nice chemistry about them. I loved that moment when after the I don't know, we're talking about the conversation, but afterwards when he was looking at the steering as if he might take off, and that robot eye thing looked at him. Can I help you? So I said, all right then. Cassian is robots; he loves them. But yeah, I thought it was a really good scene. I liked that the whole, can I trust him? Can I work for him? What's he actually want me to do? I really liked the down payment thing with the kyber crystal that he has around his neck, the blue Gritani signet. There you go. That's what it was called. So yeah, call it Sky Stones. That was really nice. No, Dave does have notes. That's right. Hey, on form and ready today. So yeah, so I just thought it was a really, really nicely played. I think you are right. It was just literally a continuation on from where they left off, because they literally had in that warehouse, then they were off on the bike, and then they were literally off on the ship. So this is literally just them really continuing on that talk they were having before they left that warehouse. And it worked really well with kind of the introduction of, look, we're doing something bigger. You have been in this fight since you were 6 years old, were you? And it's now about him. Like I said, he even said to him, you're going to die at the hand of these guys at some point. Why don't you make it something big that you're going to actually fall for? So I thought it was really, really nicely played, and kind of hints to obviously what we know is coming eventually for him. But yeah, I loved it as an actual scene. I thought it was really well put out, really well paced, really well played.
Yeah, I can't actually add too much onto what you both said, because I agree with everything. So I'm just going to add in a little something different, because the points you've both made on both Stellan Skarsgård and Diego Luna in terms of between Cassian and Luthen, it was fantastic. But what you haven't brought up, which is what sold the scene best for me, was the reference to Mimban. Now, of course, Mimban we know about from Solo. We don't know much about the war on Mimban. We just know it was in the mud, hence Mud Troopers, and it's a very messy affair. Now we find out it's the Imperials basically pitching the people of Mimban versus the Imperials at the same time in this weird kind of you're facing the same team, as it were. And we find out that Cassian joined up when he was 16, when he went straight out of prison. Now, why he went to prison, we'll find out as the series goes on, I'm sure. There's been already those few flashbacks to him at his childhood, so I'm sure that part will get told. And even if it doesn't, it's a reference to something from, of course, from Solo, so you get this kind of more world building and this bigger part of it. But what I like is Diego Luna, so it's Cassian sat there going, look, I fought on Mimban. I know the fight. This is not... The Empire doesn't play fair. I don't like it. I've been fighting the fight. And you had Luthen turn and going, you were a chef. You might have been in the mud, but you were originally a chef. And it's the proof that he does know, even if he doesn't reveal how, he does know Cassian more than Cassian gives him credit for. And then, of course, we get the down payment. It's a case of, okay, money is good. I've got nowhere to go. I have a mother who I don't know if I'll ever see again. I've got people that I owe. I don't know if I can go back there. Friends to check up on. There's a lot that he's then thinking about his future. So he goes, okay, fine. I now see that you know more than you're letting on. And that is Luthen's way of going, there's more information for you. You just have to trust me. But also, this is the intrigue. You want to know how I know you? Well, then do this for me. So it's a very, as you both said, that's why I can't add too much. It is a continuation of their scene in the warehouse. And again, what I like is then what we come to later on with the ISBs, they reference back to the box, and it's all the little points are very well connected. And of course, Tony Gilroy did either write or co-write Rogue One. It's very obvious that it's intertwined.
He handled the he did all the reshoots, didn't he?
The rewrites, yes,
the final act.
Yeah. And it's he's done a fantastic job so far with the series. So yeah, that scene for me, the only bit I can add to what you've both said is the additional A, connection to the Star Wars wider universe, but also B, the setup for, okay, you want to come with me? Because now I'm going to give you something that you don't know. I have the information, but here's money. It's a kind of a, is a really well played out scene.
Yeah, very well said. What we'll follow up with, so we're going to get to Luther in a bit of Mon Mothma, which is also, without saying weird, I think a lot of this story is going to be told via Luthen, certainly across season 1 at least. But if we follow Cassian still, where we got to the end, and I think this is where it got quite obvious to me that, okay, this is going to be, well, okay, it might not be a 3 episode. It might be like the start of a 9 episode arc. But I feel that we're getting these shorter. They did like block filming, and I know that they've already said that about season 2, haven't they? That they're shooting blocks of 3. So that's why I'm like, it felt like the ending of an introductory part today. That of course we had the proper introduction last week. Now we're going to get him learning about becoming a rebel and having his first, I guess I don't say rebel job. That sounds really weird, but you know what I mean. And what I loved about this, and this is again a credit to the writing, which I'm going to keep saying a lot, probably, hopefully over the next 2 months actually. When we meet all these other people, they feel like people. And that's not like a deep, valid criticism or like a praise. So often in long storytelling series, you meet people and it's like they will have 5 lines of dialogue and they are the only bits of dialogue that's going to be important to hear from them. They will only describe something that's going to be important to a scene or their death. Whereas with this scene, him meeting them for the first time, everyone doubting him, feels like a sort of documentary in this weird sense that you're with them. Like you're discovering Andor with these people. And he's sort of trying to put together that equation of why do they have issues with him? But it's such a real thing that if these are people that are clearly about to do a heist of kinds, they need to be able to trust Luthen. And he's already just said, no, I've just brought in this guy who I'm going to lie about the identity of and lie saying he's a mercenary. I've just brought him in to help you for a couple of days. It's a really fascinating way to pit a new character against some brand new characters. And then even finding out later on that one of them is essentially a spy in itself within the Empire. There's a lot happening, and there's a lot to take in. And this is where I think repeat viewing is going to really benefit this series. I still haven't seen 1 to 3 back yet, and I really want to. I haven't seen it with my dad yet, so I'll probably try and catch it with him. But how do we all feel about Andor's essentially his journey? Because there's not, as we said before, he's not the forefront of this episode today. Still very much his series, and I'm so excited to see what he does. But I'm fully invested in not just him, but the other story arcs, which is a massive positive. But just with what I'm expecting from his story arc, I'm quite excited because I feel like I'm heading into an unknown. That we know he's going to obviously survive everything across the next 2 seasons, but I feel that he's almost like a rookie that's just been introduced, and we know the final outcome. We know where he ends up, how he ends up, what his mindset is, from Rogue One. But I'm so excited for the journey of getting there. And I think we're going to see things in motion that's going to turn him into the character that he was in Rogue One, thus making him one of the best things in Rogue One in a very weird way. Does that make sense, Dave?
No, it makes total sense. I think the introduction, let's say, of Luthen and that trust thing with how you not trust a guy who can take out a terrible-looking wig, put it slowly on his head, turn around, and it's a beautifully coiffed head of hair. That was like, wow. That when he started putting that wig on, I was like, if that's what he turns around and he has on, there's no way. That's going to look ridiculous. He turned around, his hair was perfect. I was like, brilliant. I loved it. I literally giggled out loud to myself when it happened. Just like, it's stupid, but it made me laugh. So anyway, yeah, sorry. There's a little side note. Yeah, it's really nice that he's kind of now Cassian's with that group. And you're right, there was no just one general exposition who gave you all the information you kind of needed. They've got a crew that are made up of obviously your essentials. You've got the guy who knows about the tech and the guy who's already ready to trust Cassian, and then the rest who are all like, oh, I can't, why you bring him in? And Vel, was that the leader's name, Vel? I believe that was her name.
I think so, yeah.
So, yes, yeah, and it's just like that. She's now like, the wig was very impressive. It was, Martin. You're right. It was an impressive wig. We'll have a whole story about that at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, so I just thought it was really well played that you had this really nice group made up of, and they took Cassian in really quickly as well. Obviously, to say like, yep, look, we need an extra hand. This is what's going to happen. I like the introduction of the spy in the Empire, bringing them stuff like, you can come here, but we need your belts and your belt and your gloves before you go back. And we've got a uniform already. So he's obviously been supplying them in dribs and drabs as well. So they've been there for some time to have built their own little hut village that they've got going on. So yeah, it's really nice. It tells you exactly that Cassian is learning still, and he's going to now be introduced to these characters who he's probably going to take parts of what we see going forward from each of those. So you'll get some of that leadership from Vel's character, and maybe some of the most, I can't remember every character's name, but he's going to take different parts of what he learns now into that character going forward. And it would be nice to think that maybe they've probably went in the writing that they've gone back to the Cassian that we had in Rogue One and said, well, what elements of his character that we had, that we know from Cassian, can we now give out to this spread of characters? So you are getting that learning from Cassian to who he's then going to become.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's actually, what I like is the fact that Luthen and Vel had that chat outside of his ship. So he's keeping Cassian in the dark, but at the same time, he knows that Cassian's listening and paying attention. He knows that basically details won't be overheard, but he can see what's going on. And he turns around to Vel and goes, look, you want to lead? We need a leader. That's what the job has been given to you for. You just tell them that his name is Clem. He is joining you. He's been in the plan the entire time. The less they know about me, the less they know about what's going on, the better. And he then has to get Vel to trust himself and to trust Cassian. Without Cassian knowing the full details, with her knowing the full details, is very much the way it works in any military situation or any industrial situation where it's trade secrets or plans or whatever it is. It's the less that people know, the better. Not because you don't trust them, it's because, well, if anything happens, if someone already knows one part of one small plan and one small cog, they can't give too much away. So it all makes sense, and Luthen then is doing a very good job of installing confidence and installing what he needs for her for the rebellion. We're going, you want this job? So do it. I have, instead of you thinking that I don't trust you and going and get a hired gun, it's a case of, well, I've got the hired gun to help you finish what we started. It's the completely opposite way you're thinking. And yes, they've then spent this couple of months building this these huts up. They know what's going on. She knows about the TIE fighters. We get to much later on, of course, in the episode, talking about the actual plan for what they're doing. So I won't go too much into it now. But it's a black and white relationship between Luthen and Vel that, from her perspective, which isn't from his perspective, he's playing three-dimensional chess because he has to. We don't know what his job at this particular point. We don't know what his job is. We don't know what his real life is. We don't know where he's come from, what he's doing. Which then means you do get to the wonderful, spectacular, crappy wig that ends up looking spectacular. Once it's turned around and everything's like, yes, gone from this is the wig to this is just hair. It's just been done. I did look. I laugh. I guess same as you do. I laughed my head off when I saw like this is just. It took me out of it for a brief second because the wig was so shoddy when it's been put on from behind. It's like, how are they going to make this? No, I'm not going to bother. This is just Star Wars. It happens. It's just at this point you just kind of get on with it. You do wonder where he's come from, what he's going. So when you get to Coruscant, you then see. And yes, of course, at this point, you've also then had the whole, well, we'll talk about the OSB in a second, but it's very interesting as to how that side of that confrontation has gone down. So it's nice to see Cassian then not only be entrusted to Vel, but then also go along with her, play his part, say his name is Clem, and pretend he doesn't know things and knows more than he does, but also at that same time prepping. So what you see when you get to Rogue One is when he's talking to the general about the additional plans to actually kill Galen Erso rather than extraction. Then he goes on to play that part well, this is the plan all along, but then you see his progression, you see the fact he's willing to disobey orders, which in a good way. So it's a nice setup for what we then see down the line.
Yeah, very well said that, and kind of what I want to follow up, with this story arc, and I've just been thinking the last couple of minutes as well. There was no action today, which is quite amazing in its own right. That you don't, this is the beauty of storytelling on TV. You don't need to pad everything with action. And when we're going to get to Coruscant very, very, very shortly. But when you're still developing characters, introducing new ones, introducing new environments, new scenes, it's so important that you don't just hammer action scenes. Because it's Star Wars, you've got to have a set piece in. They're very much in that mindset of, no, we don't have to do this. We can take our time, but have patience with it. And I'm sure when the time comes, it will be gorgeous. It will probably be incredible. And I'd imagine it's going to be the next episode or the one after. but there's something brewing, and I quite like the idea that we are waiting to find out what is this plan building towards, and it's something we've not had before. And I'm not here to take pot shots at Mando, Kenobi, or Book of Boba Fett, and it's very easy to. And I know people have. People also pot shotting at the volume against shooting on sets. And I'm just here to say that all of them are great. Every project's going to be better suited to one or the other. And just today, the one thing the volume will never have, that they're the mountains in Scotland they're walking up and down today. That is on location. No one can tell you otherwise. And listen, it would look beautiful in a computer, and computers can make it look beautiful. When you've got a helicopter, you can just fly up and get that footage. And it's more of a, again, like, not to just say the British crew is better than America, because I don't mean to be unfair in that way. There's a lot more you can do with the industry over here, I feel, and certainly in that sort of environment.
It's the way it's always been. The more you do in camera, the better it's going to look in the end, because it's more real, and the eye sees that.
It's about striking the balance, and Lucasfilm have got that so well since obviously 2015 onwards of Force Awakens, that they have. Okay, bar Mando, Kenobi, I'm more than happy just to put that down to COVID, having to shoot in America over UK, which it was meant to be. It's a really interesting a really interesting timepiece. And what, non-Lucasfilms have showed us, things like Thor: Love and Thunder, that the volume isn't technology ready for everyone to use yet. You've got to have the right person using that tech. You've got to have the right cinematographer, the right people shooting it, the right people working on it. And it is not something you can just get right at the click of a finger. And it is certainly not something that you can apply to all. Oh, look, here's a city that's real, but it's the volume. We can see it's the volume, guys. Whereas, when it's Star Wars in space, of course, it's going to look better because it's fictional. Because fictional things aren't always real. Sorry. Odd tangent. Speaking of fictional places that I wish were real, though, let's talk about Coruscant. Just for those that didn't know, capital of the galaxy, officially on a title card. No Hosnian Prime nonsense, which is something I'm still not happy with.
Well, Chandrilla first, then Hosnian Prime, but go on.
I'm just here that it's the first time. Okay, not counting Kenobi. It's the first time we've seen Coruscant since 2005. I'm not counting animated stuff at all. It doesn't count to me. But live action Coruscant, 2005. Oh, Martin's got a lovely comment. I'll bring that up in a minute. It felt so great. And I'm going to kind of go on a tangent and moan. Maybe it's my internet's fault. The benefits of streaming versus physical media. Disney, rather than have it buffer, they'll just drop the video quality. So throughout the episodes today, I kept getting 480p, 1080p, 4K, 480p. It was like playing a game of cat and mouse. And I've got very good internet and it was working for everything else perfectly. I tried Disney on my PlayStation, it was playing it. I went on Disney on my TV, it was playing up. And I was just sat there, and I didn't watch it on my lunch break. I could have, but I was like, no. If we're going to go out to Coruscant, I want to do it on my nice 4K setup at home. I won't watch it on my computer at work on my lunch break. And I've got to say, I think you guys' experience would have been better than mine today, because I just had to watch Coruscant half blurry. And here's my final pop. That again, buffering issues. Maybe I was just caught at a bad time. I was good. I didn't get to take it in as much as the rest, but I will say, just seeing some of the ships flying around, just being in the city, it was so nice to be back. And I'm just going to fully hand it to them that, not to go on the prequel hype train again, because it's too easy to get distracted. When Disney were purchased in 2012, Lucasfilm were purchased in 2012, the entire mindset, this isn't Kathleen Kennedy, this is also fans. People will pretend it wasn't, but it was. Whatever you do, don't do CGI. Do it all in live action. It was things like that. And I know that Force Awakens, it would mock the politics. They literally blew up the political capital, just said it wasn't Coruscant. But for all intents and purposes, that was a very signified message to the Star Wars franchise, that we don't want politics in Star Wars, which is one that probably, I'm looking back, one of the worst canonical mistakes they've done in the entire series, if I'm being blunt. But here we are in 2022, and we're going to get a series which looks like we're going to get more Coruscant than we've ever had before. How did you all feel about? I'm not even spare what I'm off here. Just how did it look for you guys? How was it being back there? Like, because they also didn't radically change it. It was shot like Coruscant would be shot, just with modern tech, and you got a few nice camera angles like the bird's eye, which we've not really had before, which look like New York. But it was so great to be back there. And for what I said before about shooting on the volume, it shows they can do good CGI when they need to.
It was lovely when you first got that opening shot of Coruscant. Obviously, we all know what the outskirts of Coruscant like, the actual planet itself. So you don't really need the title card. But obviously, in this show, that's when you go to a different planet, you get a title card. So it's fine. You got the lovely Coruscant title card, and then you got down to the surface again, and it was wonderful to see. I didn't have any issues with my internet. It was lovely and it was crisp and beautiful. And I loved that overhead shot over the city. Now, CG and buildings has come a long way since 2005. So I think that's when you say it looked like New York. It did. They looked like buildings that they've picked up and put in the Coruscant skyline. They looked like actual buildings. Like, this wasn't at any point you thought CG render of that building. It looks like they've built this world and city perfectly. It looked amazing. It was really nice to see that. I'm glad one thing they didn't do was then go, well, now we're here, we're going to have to show you the Jedi Temple. We're going to have to show you the Senate building to give you that idea of where we are. They didn't pull to that, and I really liked the fact they didn't. You got the ships, a few streams of ships in the air, so you know where you are, and it was lovely to be back. Little hints of where you were. It was perfect.
Damn you, Dave. That was my main point going into this was the fact you don't have to see the Senate building. You don't have to see the Jedi Temple.
Yes.
That's probably... You don't have to see it. That's the thing, though. As you were talking about, we had the title card. So for the fans who aren't as well-versed, won't recognize Coruscant, full Coruscant. So I get that. Talking about that really coming up. I like the use of title cards because we had it in Rogue One, so it fits the same kind of feeling. And because of what we had in the very opening with 5 BBY, which Dave, we can now talk about the fact that they had BBY in it. I like that going forward. It should... Oh, B2 Emo. I just love the name for that. But anyway, not the point. It sets the tone going forward as well, though, because don't forget, next season's going to be time jumps. So you kind of setting the tone for your title cards to kind of help set the scene. But yeah, I haven't really actually got a huge amount to add. I mean, I also agree, though, George, with the fact that destroying the political center was a huge mistake. And for those of you who haven't, I mean, now that you both are properly more getting into the books, I highly recommend Bloodline. I've recommended it before, recommend it again. If you want a political thriller set in Star Wars, read Bloodline. It is spectacular. It gives you the beginning of the Resistance, beginning of the First Order. It gives you the galaxy finding out about Leia's parentage. It's fantastic from start to finish. It's a very good political thriller. Coruscant, yes, as you say, it's back. It's nice to see. And yes, they've come on leaps and bounds since 2005. I mean, when we came back in 2015, they'd come a long way in 10 years, let alone where they've now come along in 17 years. It's a big jump, and it's fantastic to see. But what I like, though, is not only the aesthetic of the city itself being, as you said, like New York, it's the fact the actual speeders themselves. It has that more feeling of cars. It's more the actual day-to-day life. It is, because, of course, we all live in the UK. We've all been to London many times. For those who are tourists who come here, London is a wonderful, spectacular place. Hopefully, they go and see the sights. They go and see all the tourist traps. But when you're in there on a day-to-day basis, just doing something, it's a big city. And Coruscant had that feeling of, yeah, you might be in the capital, but we're not focusing on the capital. We're focusing on day-to-day life, which in this is Mon Mothma and Luthen.
Yeah, I mean, I've just got to say the Luthen stuff. My curiosity with him was heading into the series: is he a politician? He's clearly high status within Coruscant, and he's risking a lot to be playing this, rebellious second persona. And to have a second persona, your first one must be someone that no one can find out about. And I've just got to say that's probably my favorite. My favorite scene of the entire show today is the Mon Mothma and Luthen one. And this was on Disney Plus. I think this was part of the 10-minute clips they released. This is what they showed at the event a couple of weeks ago. And I remember again loving the dialogue. And I've spoke about this so much. The dialogue's become so important. This, but how are we going to bring tension into a simple scene as two people meeting up to have a private discussion? It's the little quotes that new driver, not seen him before. And then we're getting close-ups of him, and I'm there like, he might just be a driver. But what they're doing, they're creating suspense, and they're really homing in on the paranoia and security that the politicians have coming to them. And I've just got to say, I love the fact that he is not a collector as such, but he's obviously a what's the term for like salespeople?
Like curator, like it was
art dealer kind of persona-ish.
And I absolutely love it. And I'm gonna
Curator of antiquities.
And it's such a. I mean, that would happen in Star Wars, right? It's a galaxy that spanned thousands of years, and what I love, they didn't. I'm not going to make a dig at Bond because it's really unfair, but on Dino's 40th anniversary, they went in Q's office, didn't they? And it was like, here's every prop from the last 40 years of Bond. That's fine. That's fine. That's an anniversary. It's an in-joke. It didn't work too much, but it's an anniversary in-joke. In that scene, the forefront isn't what can we show off? What Easter eggs can we do? What can we say X, Y, and Z? What can we do here? What can we point out? Oh, look, Mandalorian armor. So I could comment about, yes, from the Purge. No. It was nothing to do with anything in the room. The conversation was key to the story of reintroducing Mon Mothma, the immediate stakes she has, the danger she is in, the danger Luthen is in, and why they've got to build this rebellion. And it was just so well done. And I just can't help but keep going back to that scene. And if you want to look at the scene from an Easter egg perspective, you'll have a whale of a time. I'm guessing you all spotted the World Between Worlds stuff, which was the most obvious one. But there was a lot happening in that. But I couldn't care less. And I'm not going to sit here and shit on Easter eggs and stuff. That's become weird for people to as well. Everyone enjoys what they can from Star Wars. I believe Star Wars is something where there's something for everyone. Everyone's going to read something differently and take different things out of it. There'll be people that recognize nothing. There'll be people that recognize a lot. But by all means, I'm so... not to dig at Marvel easy, I'm so oversaturated with like Easter egg as a concept now in modern media. I don't need to be told X, Y, and Z. I just love the fact what was in that room just existed for the sake of existing because he's a curator. It's his job. And even more so, it was their sharp back and forth behind the scenes when they're grabbing the mask thing to take home as the present. And he accepts the offer essentially by ending it with the sale. And there was something about that scene that it felt like something we've never had in Star Wars before, yet it felt so perfectly in place within Star Wars and within this time of the Star Wars universe. I'd just quite happily just listen to Luthen for a day in the life. Is he there all day long? And I love his assistant as well, that she they're both in on it. And I love, even before Dave, you mentioned his the wig. I love the hot flannel. He's got all this hidden agenda stuff, and he has to rehearse the smile and postures. And it's that which to me makes the difference of performance. That he's not just magically smiling; he has to perform. This is the
and
act.
It's that opposed to Cassian's literal blade out of his boot to have a shave and kind of the rough patch up of his arm, and kind of it's the very much the diagonal opposite of just highbrow. I now need to be in a very fancy way of doing things. I must my clientele expect a certain persona from me, compared to the I have just escaped with my life. I need to just shape myself up a little bit.
The smile thing you said was probably one of my favorite acting moments of the entire show, like that episode. The moment where he stood and put his hand out and smiled to just go, I need to get back into that person who they know me on Coruscant. And it was just that change in direction from it. It was wonderful. I thought it was really just like oh, bravo. So well done. I loved the stuff that was around. You're right. There's nothing needed talking about. I think it was an Utapauan, well, it wasn't Utapauan cudgel, something that big. Hammer that he had. So it was like, we've been there before. Yeah. So, but didn't go into anything else that, like you say, didn't have to say was taken during this while we were doing this when the Jedi were fighting here, and we got it from there. And it was just in the background. And you're right, there are a million things for people to pause and watch and pore over. And we'll probably return back to that place a few times, I'm guessing, over the next few episodes. So we're going to see more and more of what's in that room. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who'll be like, just poring over stills of that place to see what they can find. I don't know if you've seen the Plo Koon mask still over the past weeks. It was you could see it very briefly in one of the early scenes when Mon Mothma first arrived. The Mon Mothma and Luthen stuff is brilliant. It kind of, we already know Mon Mothma, we've already got an idea of her, but now what we know of her really from that is, if you haven't seen the deleted scene from 3, you know her from Jedi and you knew her from Rogue One. So not a lot of information, but she immediately gave out this feeling that as soon as they got behind that and their voices dropped, you knew that, oh, okay, these guys are behind what's going on. These guys are trying to start building the rebellion. And that Mon Mothma is this, she feels like she's really put upon in what is happening in political circles around her. And you got that real feeling once you got back to her apartment of how much she is, while she's building this rebellion, obviously in the background, the burden of that is also playing massively on her shoulders of what's going on in the rest of her life as well.
Yeah, and this is Senator Mon Mothma. This isn't Rebel Leader Mon Mothma. This isn't Chancellor Mon Mothma that you get to in the Age of Resistance. This is Senator Mon Mothma, who has been dealing with the Empire for what is 15 years by this point. She's sick and tired of it. She's trying to do what she's trying to do, but she's now really has got to the point of realizing that actions speak louder than words and people need persuading, and she's still yet to take that final leap, which we then get to in Rogue One, where she has the War Council going, I can't authorize this without a full decision. And as soon as Radus makes his choice and goes, she's like, cool, all right, finally, people are just going to do it, then we can then get on this war footing. And she snaps at that point in terms of her characters finally given herself the green light. And then this is just Senator Mon Mothma. This is I'm dealing day to day with the business of the Imperial Senate of protecting the people of Chandrila, but at the same time know that because I am a little against the Empire's policies and people know it, I'm now being watched. And that wonderful exchange from the front of the shop to the back of the shop, where they both go from customer and salesman to whatever their relationship happens to be in the rebellion, and the fact they use this wonderful little art piece to go backwards and forwards and use that as a metaphor for the conversation and end the conversation of, okay, we'll do it, but don't forget you can return it in the future, which is, yes, it's a literal piece of this is on loan to you rather than you actually buying it. It's also if you need to go back, we can, but let's just push forward with this. I'm with you, even if I don't agree entirely. And for those who, it's a scene that this episode's one of those ones you can watch twice and get a different feel both times. I feel this set of scenes has that ability because, yes, there is Easter eggs galore in it, and the ISB has even more. It's one of the things I'm enjoying about the show, so I love all those connections. But this scene isn't about that, as you said, George. This is more about the actual conversation. I think it was absolutely fantastic. Because Genevieve O'Reilly, she played Mon Mothma in episode 3, as you said, Dave, but then you have Rogue One, you have the character appearing in Jedi, and I think Genevieve O'Reilly has taken more the mantle of Mon Mothma than anybody else at this point, and it's fantastic to see her in the joining period between the Senate and the rebellion and what's to come.
Absolutely, and I've just got a couple of comments on mine. There's so much dialogue, which is fantastic, great at building the tension. I'm with you on this. Every bit of tension in this series has been done via dialogue, as far as I'm concerned. It's not necessarily the soundtracks; it is genuinely the dialogue. Everything is happening through word of mouth, which is what is something so different to what we've had before. Words speaking louder than action. I guess we could put it a twist, but not usually my sort of thing. But the wardrobe department doing a brilliant job, and this is it. When you go to Coruscant, the wardrobe department's gonna be out in full fashion, and we've seen a lot of the dresses that she's wearing through obviously the trailers, but it just looks amazing. And again, it felt right. It didn't feel out of place that you're a high-end senator in the capital of the world, essentially. Of course, she's going to look on point. And that also goes in turn with the Luthen as well, that his two his two costumes couldn't be as different from one another, right down to the bits of grey hair coming into his blonde hair. Little things like that just add so much more to him. And I'm very curious about what we might learn about their history with one another, because I'm sure we're going to get conversations on it down the line. And final thing from mine, County Kerry was put next to the scene shot on Skedig. Yes, it was. I spent my 21st birthday there. Amazing place. It's now a massive Star Wars attraction point, and you just couldn't do that if it was a green screen on a stage somewhere. But moving on from that, let's talk the other Mon Mothma scene. We have the scene of her husband, which is equally as interesting because the moment she said the word husband, I was like, okay, didn't know she had a husband. He'll be dead soon. And
You're not the
what I
only one who
loved-
thought that.
yeah, and what I loved is he wasn't just this not dweeby guy like, oh, like, you know, I'm your husband, you're my wife, I love you, I follow your politics. I was like, oh, we have like internal, not husband and wife problems, because that's not my place to comment on, but it was like we have political differences in the household going so far as to, oh, but you're boring and they're great fun, but they're, you know, the right wingers in this case and you're the left winger. And it's a really interesting thing for them to do with Mon Mothma, because I also want to now learn more about her husband and her history with him, because it's clear he's a centrist of sorts, I guess, with the political conundrum. But there's there was just so much to go off. Again, I've seen it once. That's the scene I'm looking forward to seeing the most, because there's clearly going to be a history between them. There's clearly going to be things that happen. And I said to you both before we hit record, my bet is he'll die. But if I'm going to go on a silly theory from day one, meeting him for one scene, he will die for being her husband, not for political reasoning. And he'll probably be someone that betrays her, I'd imagine, for status. But I can't wait to see what transpires, because we know obviously at some point, probably season 2, we're going to get the Mon Mothma speech. And as far as references go, what I have seen stay is in the speech she does in Rebels when she broadcasts the galaxy. The planet she references being bombed is the planet she speaks about when she's almost crying in that scene of the husband. They're the people that are going to starve them. And that's what, again, I didn't clock that, and I don't think that is oh, did you know this? It's, again, great dialogue. And from what we spoke about last week of it being very real, and when I say real, I'm not saying this is a commentary on, you know, UK at the moment, which it could have been. These are everyday issues that politicians will be involved in for the rest of our time and time past that. And it's really interesting to get this, rather than George Lucas saying it's politics, we know it is, and it's more little minor nuances of politics. This is just outright, this is going to be the political Star Wars show, and I cannot wait to see what else comes from it.
It was so interesting to see that relationship when she's in there, and you know she's getting a gift for him, and it's obviously just a play to get so she can speak to Luthen. And then you get back to this household that is then filled with the tension she's been talking of, and that you can feel with that when we talk about the change in driver. It's that the husband character is played so well as not just a husband, and they have that, there's a slight tension in the air around them when they speak. There's, like there has been maybe in days past, there's been arguments about the same stuff going on. So there's that little air of tension. And then you get that dinner table that she forgot about, that they were having the dinner. And then it's how they're placed as well. Like the politics isn't just playing out in their house. It's literally playing out around their dinner table, that he's got, no, you're up there in the boring end with these people, and I've got these people that I really like to hang around with, all this end of the table. Like, what do you call, you said, the fun, these are the fun people. And it's just like, and then, she left that table saying, don't ever do this to me again. Like she puts it right out there of how bad she's having it, that these people take digs at her and will try and stop everything she's trying to put through the Senate because of the things she stands for. And yeah, I think I can't see a good way out for him. That he doesn't come across as like this smart guy, but he does have something about him that I think I could punch him in the face for a while without being bored. So it was a really well played scene. I just thought it felt like a couple in not maybe the full turmoil that they'll maybe get to, but certainly the brewing of it, that you could sense just like I say, tension's probably the best word, like all the way through from the minute they were talking, like, all right, just you need to be in different rooms, guys.
Yeah, and I loved the moment where it was first off her realization of, oh, this is tonight, I had forgotten. He's like, I put it in your diary a month ago. It's the very much, I have supported you, you know I do, but come on, I need my own freedom and expression in this relationship as well. Then you get the, hang on a second, not only is there a seating chart and you've put me down the other end because you don't want to spend time with me, you want to spend time with people that you say are more fun, but these people are politically undermining me, they are demeaning me in front of my colleagues, they're demeaning me in front of the galaxy, and they are horrible people because this is what they're doing, and you consider them fun? and you really get the sense that she's genuinely hurt when she's like, "Don't ever do this to me again." It's one of those rare occasions in acting where you go, hang on a second, is she actually acting or is she actually upset? It's very, very well played. It could come across. We've all had it in relationships where an argument's happened. You go, right, we're moving on from this. However, you must learn from this. Don't make this mistake again. Not because the mistake you've made. It's the lesson of this hurt me. Learn from it. Don't do it because, yeah, it'll end us. And it's played very, very well. It's very human. And it's one of the things in Star Wars that people forget is, yes, there are fantastical races, fantastical galaxies and planets and systems, and you have people from all walks of life. But at the end of the day, it's still a very human story. And it comes down to relationships, and that is a very human reaction. Like when she dismisses the help when they're kind of setting up, it's not even dismissing, it's a case of, go away. No, I told you, off, get out of here, you're gone. Like, I need, this is a private conversation that won't be private. You'll probably hear this, but I need to think you can't. And she's already paranoid about spies in her home, or she's thinking, well, the maid could be a spy, but I'm wondering if the husband ends up betraying her and being a spy down the line, because her political views and his are so different that money talks and idealism talks. If he feels neglected, again, there's angles to be played at, and I think it's fascinating. And it's not just that, as you say, it's the nod to Rebels, which if you look for it and you know what you're looking for, it's a fantastic Easter egg. And we haven't even got to the ISB yet, where I'm going to go off of quite a few Easter eggs that I absolutely love, because it's all that connection. It's not Easter eggs for Easter eggs' sake in Star Wars. It's very much, here are dots are connected for a reason. Yes, there's a few bits dropped here and there because they can. The Mandalorian armor was a case of, well, yeah, you know what it is, you see it. Doesn't even brought attention to it, just sat there. It doesn't make any difference, unlike what you had in Dryden Voss's office on his ship, which was people going, wait, that's Mandalorian armor. How does he have that? Is that Boba Fett's armor? Is that this? You don't need that. It's just very much an straight up and down, oh, it's a piece of armor. And this, yeah, it's a fantastic conversation. It's a fantastic moment. And it's, as I said, it's showing humanity in Star Wars, and it sets up for what's to come without us knowing what that payoff will be yet. However, all three of us have sat here and gone, hang on a second, this is a red flag, we know what's coming. This isn't right. Something's going to happen with this. And it's very subtle, but very well done.
Yeah, very well said. And I think as well what you said, because he's a creator too, of course he would have access to that stuff, and you just can't question it because it's his job. It was like a low life corner of, the Coruscant, the low levels. You'd be like, wait, how's he got Mando armor? But this, yeah, a collector would have stuff like that. We know people have done that in the real life history, that war artifacts, they do get auctioned off and all that sort of stuff. We've got another great comment. Martin said the back and forth in secret and the looking over the shoulder for spies with deadly consequence reminds me of Valkyrie, nerve-wracking. And this is it. And we've not ever felt tension like this in Star Wars. And I think, guys, before episodes in, how on earth are we going to be feeling when things genuinely pipe up? When
she goes to Dexter Jester for help, that we're all going to be like, right, now it's got real.
and that's it. And it's, yeah, I think what we'll do, I mean, moving forward, the Coruscant stuff we're all invested in anyway, but I think that just adds another edge to the wider story of what is happening in the galaxy. And this is the only series I think you can get away telling that. But if we move on to the villain side of things, again, something Star Wars hasn't done, we get to follow the villains. Of course, we have another, not new, well, it is a new character, I guess we can say. We have, oh my days, I've already blanked it, Denise Goff, who is playing Dedra Miro, who, based off the marketing, we know is going to be one of the two key villains for the series. But I'm just going to immediately give a shout out. We've been on a Game of Thrones hype recently. Star Wars has always had crossovers with Game of Thrones. A lot of Game of Thrones actors were obviously cast in the more modern Star Wars films, series, and so forth. I just want to give a lovely shout out to, dear me, the character name has disappeared off my schedule as well. He plays Qyburn in Game of Thrones, for anyone that's watched the later seasons of that series. Anton Lesser, that's it. Apparently his name's Major Partigaz, and I didn't get your name, mate, because you were immediately one of my favourite Imperial officers. That opening scene, the dressing down he gives everyone, them handing in their reports. You know what I'm going to say? When was the last time we had a competent military man in Star Wars? That's not Grand Admiral Thrawn for obvious reasons. And that's been the big jump to this episode. Like, if we're now going to reach a point in this storytelling, these guys have been in power for 15 years. We know there's going to be a rebel uprising. Let's not continuously see them being terrible at their jobs. Let's see how they go in their day to day. And I absolutely loved the setup of the room. I know it was in the trailer ages ago, and I was like, this is a character that he walks into the room and he just possesses power. And that's not even, is it physical performance? I don't know, but there is status there because they've almost built that, not room around him, but the episode is built around the ISB having political issues with one another. And I just think it's a great way to introduce another key villain. We're going to obviously get her rise to the top. We got a little bit of Cyril Khan. One of the biggest surprises for the whole series to me, Catherine Hunter. If anyone's familiar with her, one of the best theatre trained actresses, British. I think she was in one of the Harry Potter films really randomly as Mrs. Fig. Legend of the Stage, playing his mum in it. And I was like, oh my God, like they've got, again, talk about your British core. Gone are the SNL comedic cameos, stage actors, Britain. I'm not normally patriotic, sorry, I don't know why I am, but I don't know. There was just something. Yeah. No, honestly, yeah. I was just there like, let's just be blunt. Like, British supporting actors are the core of Star Wars. If I'm being honest, minor roles. It just felt so effortlessly amazing today, didn't it? I'm handing it to you guys. Again, like I said about Luther, I'd happily just spend a day with these. Meanwhile,
I see a love struck look in your eyes there. Just sat wistfully thinking about it.
Wow, it's because I'm thinking about someone else. I'm thinking about someone else I'm going to bring up soon. But yeah, it's Martin, of course, going to bring this up too. Big Irish contingent, yes. And we've got a lot of Scots that also appear in this. We are getting all of the British Isles involved. Dave, over to you. Just how did you feel about that scene? Yeah. Is that something you've always wanted?
It was perfect. I think the British thing comes down to us reverting back into original trilogy sort of empire. Once the Empire are there, it's right for it to have that British feel through it, because the Empire that we knew from the original trilogy, it was very much a British accent-based world. So this just fits right into where they were. They're Imperials. They are part of this line, so they're taken from a world and they come from this world. So that accent is just what we're used to. I thought the main guy had this Tarkin-esque feel about him. Yeah. Like every time he was in a room, that was what I felt like. Oh, okay, I see why you're in charge of this. Like, but literally every scene he was in was like, oh, you feel like Tarkin. You that was the full vibe from him. But I thought the whole thing was played out so well. And who doesn't love a room full of people in white uniforms? It looks amazing. I love the little blue cubes that they have for their status. But yeah, I just thought it was really well done. Like this scene, not the scene, the whole series so far, acting wise, it's been incredible. There's not been like a bad performance in it. And I think sometimes it might be a bit of, obviously there's the guys in the bar, the accents sometimes, because we're from the UK, are very regionalized, and it sometimes can stand out for a few seconds. Like, oh, okay, that they're from there. But I just think the acting as a whole has been marvelous. To have a stage actor just be there to be his mum, to give him a slap and a cuddle. Sounds like a title of a raunchy novel. But yeah, to then have him in, I just thought he plays his character has evolved in this 3 episodes as being this chipper guy who's all for the rules and regulations and likes extra lovely bits of piping on his uniform, to being this down and out desolate guy carrying his 2 sad suitcases round the streets. Just, oh my word, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
And we went from last week where it was George, myself, and Sam talking about him being, well, George especially, be a big bad. I can see him being.
He's gonna be. He's
not gonna be a bad. I said last week, and I say it again this week. I hope he's not, but I can already see the writing on the wall. He's gonna defect, and I don't like it because it's so overdone. I don't like the Imperials going to the Rebel side because it's a trope that's gone on and on. That aside, though, it was a fantastic little moment. Yes, the slap and the cuddle of just, where the hell have you been? What the hell have you done? Thank God you're home. Also the, what the hell are you looking at? The other person across the street was fantastic. But the ISB itself, I have been waiting for this. This is one of the parts that, the ISB itself, the actual ISB was something from Legends that was brought back into canon in a wonderful way. It's fantastic to see it done. The office, as you said, it does feel like it's built around him. It's very much the right, you lot. I need reports. I need all this done, and it's the very much what is the mission statement of the ISB? Okay, that's verbatim, but you're wrong. And he's very much educating and schooling those around him. And when I talk about
everything
Easter
you
eggs,
just said is absolutely wrong.
wrong. Yeah, yeah. It's fantastically done. But not only that, though, so the Easter eggs involved in the ISB were subtle but fantastic. Ryloth, for example. Ryloth, we know from Rebels. If anyone's read Lord of the Sith, you'll know it from that as well. Lord of the Sith is a fantastic novel because you bridge the gap between the Republic and the Empire. It's the same thing you get Bad Batch. Bad Batch, you see the physical crossover in Lords of the Sith. It's Vader and the Emperor literally going around murdering groups of Twi'leks because they feel like it. It's basically because the Empire's messed up on the planet. It's a fantastic read, and I won't spoil any more than that, but it's fantastic to see, again, these dots being connected. It's all the different areas, and it's all the different, your report was terrible, and this is why it's terrible. Do it again. It's the very much headmaster vibe, and yes, it is very much the original trilogy being filmed in the UK, British stage actors being used, Shakespearean actors being used for prominent roles. I.e., you had, of course, Guinness for Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then you also had Peter Cushing for Tarkin, and it's the Empire does exude that very British evil bad guy, but upper class vibe. It's very
the British
well
Empire. They weren't good guys.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, we weren't. We did awful things around the planet. It's nothing to be proud of. And for the imperialists, well, you're wrong. But that's not the point of this. This is very much that Governor Tarkin. Again, watching Rogue One, say Guy Henry did a fantastic job bringing that back. And I was waiting for the klaxon and everything of the director credit watch for this particular scene. As this is where he's going to appear. If he's going to appear anywhere, will be at the ISB. But apparently not. But no, it was fantastically done. I'm interested to see where it goes. And I love the little political games they're playing of, I see you want to further your career. You're making a mistake. You're going to be on an island. And it was the wonderful bit when she walks out the room. He's like, don't look down. And the ladder comment of just, it's so well done. It's very much don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And then here are your arguments. He has 6 sectors. You have 2. Now, don't get me wrong, you're doing a good job, but keep to your jurisdiction. Get back to work. It's very efficient, and yeah, it's fantastically done. It's my favorite part of the episode. Not that I didn't enjoy everything else. It's hard to. If I was going to cherry pick something from it that I enjoyed, this was it, because I find, although the Senate is fascinating, I find the Imperial workings that little bit more intriguing, because the Senate, you know what it's there for, but you know it's a front. It's very much the Empire's doing it. The Senate is there to make it look like it's still a republic, even though it's not. Whereas the Empire's the real working behind it. That's why I find it a little bit more fascinating. But
and we've never been there in live action. Yeah. We've not been there in live action, and I think that's such a mighty thing for this, that they even make a dig at the concept of the Empire. Like, oh yeah, you can call on the Navy, and they'll go send some people out. And I'm like, hey, that's like all the Star Wars. And it's like, yeah, we're going to see the inner workings of how these guys work and the office politics, the rise up. But yeah, Phil, I was going to pay homage and respect to the fine performances before we bring it in, but it is the weekly part of the show. So we're going to do Krennic Watch. I feel like I should do some kind of transition for this one day. But as we're going to do with every episode of this series, we're going to keep playing this. We're going to keep asking, has Director Krennic returned to Star Wars?
They mentioned Scarif for crying out loud.
I know, we got close. It's like, we got a Scarif name. And it's like, oh, they're putting construction there. But the short answer is no, we didn't get Director Krennic. And as a follow-up, no, I'm not going to cry. Because, we spoke last week how great it was that there's no Easter eggs. We said it a lot today. I don't need to have Krennic turn up, or even though we do. I'm not going to be opposed. I'm not going to be opposed to him not showing up, because the story... And I think Tony Gilroy said it. He's made his story that's going to tell his story, not someone else's story. Now, there is potential for Krennic to obviously be there. Aside many other characters here, we know Saw Gerrera's going to turn up. But my theory, we've met the Empire for the first time today. If I'm being bluntly honest, as you said, Phil, the Senate is almost irrelevant to the galaxy. It's the Empire that runs it, and it is always that arrogance that's their downfall, which I also love. I'm going to keep calling him Qyburn because that's what it's called from Game of Thrones, was the Hand of the King. His downfall is that he's already declined it. That she's already worked out. Hold on, she says these are the same coordinated attacks, the same schedule, and they are taking valuable stuff that will help any coordinated attack. And once again, no, we'll cast you to the side, and you stick to what you're doing, and let him stick to what he's doing. And I'm so excited for what political madness we're going to get with the villains, because again, what I mentioned, Phil, with Khan. I'm the opposite to you. I don't think he's going to defect. I think what we're going to get is he's got like a sort of god complex that they believe they're larger than life, and his episode 3 was entirely his comeuppance. He couldn't have the actions to match his words. He couldn't do it up front. He couldn't actually get the job done. And we're going to see him, to me, go on this trajectory now. Even going back to his mom, that's not going to end well. He's going to end up going back out and doing something stupid. And my initial inkling is that we're going to see him team up. I'm going to learn her name definitely by next week with Dedra Miro. I'm guessing they can call her probably Officer Miro will be the proper thing we get throughout the series. I think these two are on a destiny to come together and be like this new power of the Empire, or a new want-to-be power of the Empire. But how did we feel? I mean, Dave, I'm just not going to ask, how did you feel about No Krennic? Because actually, Martin comes as well. I thought we might have seen a Krennic cameo today. I still maintain he's going to be in the series.
I think, obviously, when you are in the ISB, and obviously they're all in that uniform, so it kind of gives you more of a background. Is it known that Krennic was he part of the ISB? Was that where his uniform was from? Has that ever been? I don't know if that's ever come out.
They don't have any gorgeous capes.
They don't have gorgeous capes. You're right. They all just have white uniforms.
But Death Troopers are going to be in the series. We've seen Death Troopers in the trailers.
You will see part of it. He's not part of the ISB. Although his department connects to the ISB now, he's all dependent on the engineering side of things. It's that's why he's building the weapon. It's the energy side of it for that. But it's all different because the project's split up into so many different areas, so no one knows what they're working on until it's the Manhattan Project effectively in that regard, which is why though when it's like when Dr. Oppenheimer basically realized what the hell they were doing, he went, I have created the worst thing imaginable. When Galen Erso discovered what the energy was being used for, it wasn't harnessing kyber crystals for people, it was to kill. That's why he flipped and he left. So I don't, as far as I'm aware, from what I've read, he's not part of the ISB, but it's linked. So you'll see most likely at some point.
I do think it's really interesting as well with us being in Imperial stuff. Not one stormtrooper to be seen, which I thought once we got into Coruscant and around the ISB that we would have had troopers around, just because they're general, they're not high ups, they're just generally about. And I was a bit like, oh, not one stormtrooper to be seen at all across any of it. And that didn't take me out of it. I'm loving that. I'm still enjoying everything that we're saying, but it did actually just for a second go, we haven't seen one stormtrooper, which I just thought would be hanging about places. But no, at Krennic, who knows? He's out there somewhere. His cape billowing beautifully behind him. Krennic Mobile is on its route someplace. Who knows if we've had a mention of Scarif, which made me smile. That was lovely. He might have been in that white room, but he maybe was standing backwards and just you couldn't see him because he was against the wall. Who knows? But it would be lovely to see him. I don't know if we're going to get him. I really don't. But hey, we'll have Krennic watch every week, and let's enjoy that still.
Can you imagine the episode I miss is when he comes in it?
I'm so sorry. That'll be maybe my favorite day ever if that happens.
I will literally
hope that's
record
the
a
case.
video. No, but yeah, it's a really interesting. We've gone for over an hour on this, way past the episode length. But we've got story points with break up the episode today. What I want to kind of ask everyone is their final thoughts on episode 4, because it's really tricky. It kind of finished. I was like, oh, great. Because I think Mando's not walked us in a sense, but because Mando's an episodic series, it's like a Saturday morning, different story every week. It's a new chapter, it's a new adventure. Whereas I'm still adjusting to Star Wars being on the small screen and having this wide political spectrum. I'm like, just give me all the information, give me all the politics, and we're in a very good time for TV at the moment. We've got House of the Dragon, we've got Lord of the Rings of Power, we've got Andor, We've had Cobra Kai. There's some really good stuff happening. There are amazing shows I've not been able to watch as well. And to get all this weekly at home is honestly wonderful. And it's going to be amazing going this journey over the next sort of 8 more weeks until this series rounds out. But my final thoughts on episode 4, again, loved it. Felt introductory, but at the same time, that's what I kind of want. And who knows where we're going to go next week? I reckon we'll be in the Imperial Senate. We're going to tick off some famous places, and I'm curious as to where they move ahead with the story, because I'm just going to keep saying we're curious. And it's kind of weird. The show's called Andor, but I'm going to probably answer for all three of us when I say that the best stuff was the ISB. The best stuff was with Mon Mothma. And I think that just goes to show is that what Tony Gilroy has been able to do with this series so far. Just sorry, very quickly, Martin has mentioned Slow Horses and Apple. Yes, I've heard very, very good stuff. That's the new Gary Oldman series. And I think they've just shot season 2 and 3 back to back, or season 2. So that's one I do want to watch. But over to you both. Dave, final thoughts on episode 4.
The thing I'd say, but I think you're right. Everything, the Cassian stuff was sort of a page holder for the character, so we knew where he was and what he's doing, but he wasn't the main draw of this. It was Luthen, it was Mon Mothma, it was the ISB. That was the intrigue. And the best thing I can say is once the episode finished, I was desperate for it to just give us 10, 15 more minutes. I was just, oh no, just not yet. There's a little bit more you can tell in this story. And I think that's what gives you great television, that you're ready for the next episode as soon as one's finished, that you don't just go, oh, that's finished, right, I'll go off to this. I was like, oh, there's not, I really wish there was another episode that I just go straight into now and watch. Even though I love weekly television, I don't really enjoy a binge watch every now and now. Like on the series, I do like the weekly thing to kind of just, all right, and sit and then at the end I can binge it again if I want to. But yeah, for it to leave me with a feeling of like, I need to see what's going to happen next is the best compliment I can give this series. And I love this episode again. But yeah, for the ISB and the Mon Mothma stuff, by far, and I thought Skarsgård was really just top of his game in this.
Yeah, I was disappointed when it ended. I'm like, oh, wait, it doesn't feel like it's ended. Like, it's not even I want the next episode. It's like, oh, this doesn't feel like it's finished. Like, is that kind of tangible? Well, you could have done more here. This episode could have been 50, 55 minutes long. You could have had that extra 10, 15 minutes worth of footage, and it wouldn't have dragged. The one thing I'll say, we haven't actually spoken about the Band of Rebels much, which is a bit of a shame considering that's the lowest part of the episode, and it was still good. The plan, of course, is where we'll end up with next week. So next week we'll have the Imperial Senate, more the ISB, but also have this plan progress. They're going to the garrison. They're going to go break in. They know the fact the TIEs are going to take 9 minutes to get there. I reckon we'll get that in real time. It's going to be, that'll be your set piece. So every 3 episodes, you'll get a set piece. And that's going to be the set piece of this 3-episode arc. The fact they had literal AK-47s as blaster rifles as well, it felt proper guerrilla warfare style. So I kind of appreciated the flavor they were sprinkling in there. But for that to be the lowest part of the episode, when it was still good, and to be this is Andor, as you said perfectly, the placeholder for the character in his own series and in his own world, when he's the lowest part of it, that's good writing. It's not that you don't care what's happening to him, you do, but you go, hang on a second, but this is important also, and this is important. But you don't feel like you're being split. You'll feel and go, okay, it doesn't feel muddied. There's a problem you can have with some shows and some films. They try and tell you too much at once. You can kind of get lost as to who's doing what. This is very clear 3 separate stories being told simultaneously, but you're not left kind of being jumped about. You're going, okay, this is where these characters are, this is where these characters are, this is where these characters are. They'll all link up in the end. We just need to get to that end point, and they're telling us as we go along. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And the other thing we haven't mentioned was the music for this episode. It's back to more traditional Star Wars orchestral style. It's more, but it fits. It fits better than, and I give all the credit in the world to Ludwig Göransson. He's done a fantastic job with The Mandalorian. That music fits that, but this feels proper. It feels proper Star Wars. It feels proper original trilogy, Age of Rebellion-esque. This is what you need from this show. And it's been well done. I love it. And I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next week, knowing that it is a slow burner, knowing that you go into it going, well, we won't get the answers to everything, but we might get an answer to something. And I'm okay with that. It's different, but it feels so right, and I love it.
No, definitely. That all being said, as I said, we are going to obviously continue these spoiler discussions throughout the rest of the series. They're going to be on the channel every single Wednesday. probably 8 p.m. There's going to be more details because there's still a lot of things to iron out over the next couple of weeks, potential guests and loads of other stuff. So what we're going to hand over right now is please do comment your thoughts on Andor. We are, again, spoiler discussion. Thank you to Martin who's been commenting with us throughout the evening. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And to anyone watching at home, anyone that takes the time out to check out stuff, we do appreciate it. And we hope you've enjoyed this discussion. It's a bit different. It's Star Wars, but it's a new kind of Star Wars. And certainly, do consider hitting the subscribe button. There's not just Andor, there's Andor Season 2. There will be other Star Wars stuff. And of course, we're heading into some real big stuff next year. So if you're a fan of Star Wars, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. It does mean a lot. We've just cleared another goal of ours the last couple of weeks, which we really appreciate as always, do helping us grow. And it's because of you guys watching at home, you guys checking out our videos, is the reason we get to sometimes go to these events to see films early. I didn't want to talk again about the cinema trip last week, but very, very different watching at home compared to an IMAX. And that's always going to be a conversation.
That's why your internet suffered this week. It was karma. You left us and abandoned us to go to the cinema to watch the first 3 episodes. Now you get the awful one for Coruscant. That's your punishment.
But you never know what ones I will get next time. But yes, as I said, a lot more Andor on the way. If you want to find our social medias, find out about us. There's a lot happening on the channel. There's a hell of a lot. I'm going to round out a couple of things I need to plug. But the main thing is getting us on Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and networks.com/cinema_savvy, Redbubble link to pick up merch. I'm rushing through them because there's so much things happening. It's the Bond anniversary this week. It's the 60th anniversary of James Bond. Happy birthday, etc., etc. The insane auctions happening live as we speak at Christie's. The reason I'm plugging an auction at Christie's, not going to say you can't afford to bid in it. Maybe you all can. But I just saw a clap award valued at 5k sell for £29,000 tonight, which has completely blown my mind. But this Sunday is the main event. Our 60 greatest James Bond moments video will premiere at Sunday at 6 p.m. It has been edited. It has been finalized. It's exported. It's done. It's been copyright checked. This video will go up this Sunday at 6 p.m. I really hope you enjoy it. It took a relatively small amount of time to make, 29.5 hours from concept to finish. So I hope you enjoy it. It's not 20 hours, though. It's 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. But there's a lot of guests on there. A lot of people have helped out over the years. So I really appreciate if you do get the chance to join us this Sunday for the James Bond stuff. And I mentioned this videos all week. You can check out interviews with Chris Corbold and Meg Simmons from the Christie's auction at Monday. We're very lucky to be at the press day for that. We got to talk about No Time to Die, some of their history of the series and what's to look out for with the anniversary week. We're going to be at the BFI on Saturday, celebrating so much of the events. There's going to be a lot of Bond stuff. So we're glad to get it all to you over whilst doing Star Wars and whilst also preparing for the London Film Festival. So you can only imagine how insane scheduling stuff is at the moment. I hadn't even mentioned the Steven Spielberg retrospective. That's also happening. We had to batch record like 6 episodes in 4 weeks. War Horse is going to come out Tuesday, the 4th of October. As I've already mentioned, pre-recorded, pre-edited. If anyone is curious, we've got all of our videos primed up till after London Film Festival. So Bridge of Spies was recorded with the Spy Hards on Monday. That's that 18th of October. So there's a lot of things happening on the channel. And again, all your support makes this possible. If you guys take time today to jump on as well, it is always appreciated. In the comments as well, Martin, thanks for the chat. Again, with the episode of Andor, because of it, thank you so much. And there's so much to the channel at Films Paradise. Thank you for the hard work. It's appreciated. No worries. I enjoy making this stuff. It helps with a lot of other things that are happening. And, I get the chance to see films and talk about films, which, is an incredible thing. And I'll plug our Avatar review. Avatar was great. Sorry, Dave. And I'll round out an Avatar hype. So check out our Avatar review. And if you're curious about that comment, you have to see the video. See you all in a bit.
It's Punk Hunters with Blue People. There you go. I've solved it. Watch it.